On the bridge where the tide can't flow, snap vivid like the Nikon. Been cold with the vibe warm, keep it locked like the vice arm. They got her twisted like the coat arm, heart something froze like the snowstorm. Her tote bag match a throat charm. She from the land of the sand where they flex so subtle when her drink mint muddle. Left home and her man in the game that he played for the sand of the shade. She parades you to swear in her shades. She like why you do that, niggas be deceptive. Young pretty restless, long as a check is addressed to a resident. She self-heal therapy, she beat 10 on clearance, but she shopping for clarity. Reap what she sold for the dividend. Know what time is a medicine, copping the wristwatch, Cartier with the bezel on her credit. Demanding hers where it's due. I swear she's so sadistic, defensive, pessimistic, reclusive. She too lit, independent. She too quick to dismiss courtship, concerned with malice. She pile up as the bout ends. She throws a talent. She clutch a half full chalice. Sip you from fountains. Check her rap. She chic, maneuver mountains.
Fly away with you, escape the negative. I'm just trying to let time out. Fly away with you, escape the negative. I'm just trying to let. Girl, come on, let's fly. Girl, come on, let's fly.
I let the thumbnail distract me from the bigger picture. Losing sanity to misplaced feelings. Real shit kept deep in her makeup bristles. Outline blink, she sent 1,000 kisses. I just tripped, I sold 1 million tickets. I'm way too focused on this image lately. My mind is racing, million miles a minute. No time to slide, I guess I'm bad with distance. I never text you back, lately my thoughts they drifted around the shots to keep us all from losing who we are. We're products of a generation where we swiping left across the interfaces. All my mind I tend to be evasive. Yeah. All the notice how the money made us.
Let's fly, let's fly, let's fly away. Let's fly, let's fly, let's fly.
Yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again with another live stream. So before we get started, you already know what to do. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice. Smash the like button, share this stream out to all of your followers, and let's get it cracking. All right, so shout out to everybody who is in the building early. It's good to see each and every one of you. If you guys can hear me okay, please give me a thumbs up or a radiation emoji in the chat. If you guys cannot hear or see me for whatever reason, please give me a thumbs down or an angry face. While you guys are doing that, I'm going to shout out everybody who's in the building early, all right? Shout out to DeAndre for being a like enforcer early. Good to see you, bro. Make sure y'all throw some like enforcers in the chat for DeAndre. Definitely appreciate it, bro. And shout out to Brooklyn Queen. Go, shorty. It's your birthday. We gonna party like it's your birthday. We gonna sip Bacardi like it's a birthday. Shout out to Brooklyn Queen. Shout out to Caldona. What's good with it? All right. So we gonna tackle this question. We gonna look at a couple videos. The Black voter monolith. All right. Allegedly, supposedly, when we go and watch all these TV shows, we watch all of these unchosen representatives that none of us ever voted for or asked to speak on our behalf, go and get paid multi-millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, consolation prizes, whatever those things may be, to go and talk to a company that's not owned or invested by us and somehow give them what's on all of our minds without telekinesis. That pretty much about sums up the situation, right? If that sums up the situation, give me a thumbs up. If it don't, give me a thumbs down. Shout out to DC Precise. What's good with it, bro? So we got to ask a couple questions. We got to run this down the line. We got to run it down the line. We got to run it down the thin black line. You know what I'm saying? The first question is, how many people have seen people like Joy Reid, Tiffany Cross, all of these people complain about quote unquote so-called podcasters? Now, let me ask you guys a question. Why would you complain about what a podcaster has to say about his lived or personal experience when you then turn around and go and get a professional podcaster, aka a radio host, to go and do the same thing? So one podcaster is not a valid critique or a valid testimonial, but another one is. How do we uphold a standard on that? Somebody explain that to me. So somebody that sets up a YouTube channel and makes content based off of their experience, data, opinions, and observations, for whatever reason, because a Tiffany Cross or a Joy Reid quote unquote deems that person as a podcaster, their opinion is not relevant. Now, these are also the same people that will go and profess to these other people on these shows that, quote unquote, we's not a monolith. How many times have you guys ever heard people say that, quote unquote, we's not a monolith? I would like to believe that. But in most cases, if you're not a monolith, there's an encouragement of autonomy. Not an encouragement of carbon copying. Would you guys agree? If you guys agree, please give me a thumbs up. If y'all disagree, give me a thumbs down. So here's my question. Numerically, how are we not a monolith if we vote for one particular party for a duration of decades at greater than 90% each time? Do you know that our support for the Democrats could sink 20 to 30% and we would still outperform all other groups of people as far as loyalty to a party, even if our Democrat support sank to 70%? Think about that. But yet you have all of these people jumping out the window. How does that make any sense numerically? Also, if we're not a monolith, then why is there a bunch of people going around policing what everybody does? If you're not a monolith, you're supposed to be autonomous. You're supposed to be self-governing. Right? Now, the biggest enforcer of race simping and black voter monolithism would be white media outlets. And it don't matter what side of the political spectrum that they fall on. Fox, they'll do it. MSNBC, they'll do it. CNN, they'll do it. Right? And nobody benefits. Nobody benefits from it. Let me ask you guys a question. If you're investing in a stock, is it a good idea to invest in all of the same stock, or is there something called a beta coefficient? A beta coefficient is a coefficient that gives a measure of volatility on your portfolio based on the correlations of the diversity of each investment. So you might have a little bit of crypto, you might have a little bit of gold, you might have a little real estate, you might have a little bond, debt equity, and you might have some commodities or some derivatives. Now, how many people back in the day heard their parents tell them, don't put all your eggs in one basket? Do you guys know that old saying has a little bit of mathematical significance? That saying is an archaic way of saying quantitatively ease and hedge your risk. If you guys would agree, give me a thumbs up. If you guys would disagree, give me a thumbs down. So if it makes more sense and provides a higher likelihood of a better return on your investment to quote unquote diversify your investment, you have to ask, why then would people be complicit with the media attempting to maintain an outer shell and outer containment around a black voter monolith? That's my question for you guys. Let me know what you guys think. Shout out to DC Precise. DC Precise says you're not on their payroll and can't be boxed into their limited, stupid beliefs given to them by massa. Facts. And you guys aren't either. Shout out to Jacoby. What's good with it? Shout out to DeAndre. DeAndre says, because they think as black people, we free to do as we please when it comes to voting. Yeah. Yeah. Now, let me ask you guys a question. What qualifications does Charlamagne the God have to give a news agency about insights as to, quote unquote, how we plan on voting? because I don't know how people plan on voting. There's some people that's going to vote for the couch. They're going to stay on the couch. Shout out to the people on the couch. Some people that's going to vote for Trump. Shout out to the people that's going to vote for Trump. And there's some people that's going to mess around and vote for Kamala Harris. Shout out to them, right? I can't tell you how everybody's going to vote. I haven't done any studies. I've read research studies from Pew, Gallup, Brookings, places like that, but I haven't done any of my own. So I only have reference information that I can use. But my question is, what reference information do people like Charlamagne the God and Angela Rye use? Where are your qualifications to make these calls? Let me ask you guys this. When it comes to policy discussions or talking about other people in terms of these things, why is it the white media doesn't get radio hosts? And why is it that they always talk about other groups of people in terms of their quote unquote diversity? I thought these were the people that were against diversity, DEI, equity. How can you be against DEI and then turn around and try to shame a group of people for being a monolith? There's not a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion in a monolith, is there? So what's the actual problem? Shouldn't be no problem, right? Shout out to G Mars. Shouldn't be no problem. But there's a lot of money in being a monolith enforcer. And the reason why, if you control and create a monolith, then guess what? You can control and influence the results. If you create a black voter monolith, you decrease the likelihood of unknown occurrences happening. This is one of the reasons why when you see something that's not very likely or something that hasn't happened very often, people fly off the handle, as we're going to watch in these videos here. There's some voter trends that are going very different than they have traditionally, and people just can't handle it. Information overload. So much so that in order to make ourselves comfortable, we'll just deny reality. Let me ask you guys this. Is denying reality ever a solution to dealing with a problem? That's never a solution to dealing with a problem. But that's what they would like you to believe. So let me ask you guys this. What is the incentive for being a quote unquote monolithization enforcer? What's the incentive for that? If you can decrease the volatility, if you can decrease the chances of unknown, you already have one group of people where you know that the result is going to be the exact same every single time mathematically, and you can calculate it damn near down to a tenth. Now, if you don't believe me, I'm going to ask you this. Go back and look at the voting percentages and breakdowns based on racial demographics over the last 6 decades and tell me how similar they are. And then let me ask you this question. Has there been a pattern of predictability established where somebody could easily guess our move? Now, here's the question. If somebody guesses your move, are you easy to control? If someone guesses your move, are you easy to control? Are you easy to mitigate as a risk? Are you easy to quote unquote contain? I would say, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to take a look at this video first. Real quick shout out to everybody that's watching. I appreciate you guys. If you all haven't smashed that like button yet, please do me a favor. Take a moment, smash that like button. Also, if you guys haven't hit the bell, do me a favor. Take a moment, hit that bell. And also, please share the stream to your social media. And when you do, make sure that you tag somebody who is interested in this type of discussion in that share.
She became a career prosecutor while he became a career criminal. With 34 felonies, 2 impeachments, and 1 porn star to prove it. Kamala Harris has a resume. Donald Trump has a rap sheet. She presides over the Senate while he keeps our national secrets next to his thinking chair.
Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett drew a strong contrast between the two people currently running for president when she addressed the Democratic National Convention last week. Freshman House member has been a prominent voice among congressional Democrats, not only for the Democratic presidential ticket, but also in the Oversight and Accountability Committee, where she has confronted Republicans over their bullying tactics and the ex-president's retention of classified documents. And joining me now is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, Democrat of Texas, who as of today is the new national co-chair of the Harris-Walz campaign.
So she got a job. So everybody throw some flames in the chat for her. Shout out to her. She got a job. You know what I'm saying? Now, we're going to talk about something that's very specific in this video. All right. I want you guys to wait for it. Shout out to Deneen. What's good with it, Deneen? Good to see you.
Congratulations on that, Congresswoman. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I want to first start just to get your response to the sound we played of J.D. Vance in the previous segment, where he basically says he's going after Randy Weingarten, and he basically says, like, if you don't have your own children, like, stay the hell away from ours. You shouldn't be a teacher involved in education if you don't have your own children. And this is now a whole body of stuff where he really seems to have it out for folks that don't have kids. I'm just curious your reaction to that.
The guy is a weirdo. It's really-
So now, do you immediately off rip, do you notice the repeated talking point? We're using the weirdo talking point. Now, again, as far as J.D. Vance goes, you know, him and his whole kid jihad thing, everybody may not have kids. That's just something that he's just going to have to deal with. You know what I'm saying? What he's doing is another form of private part policing. That also goes into race simping. Right? So, again, what we basically have here is not the Democrats getting out of anything. We have both parties being the same shameful clown show. If you guys would agree, give me a thumbs up. If y'all disagree, give me a thumbs down. Shout out to Win Loser Rug. Facts. Win Loser Rug said, you said that months ago when she was caping for Biden. She was auditioning. Facts, bro. And look, she got a job. Shout out to her. Everybody throw some ticker tape in the chat for her. She got a job. Yay. That's what she was trying to do. She did it. Yay. You know what I'm saying?
really quite simple, you know, and I thought that it was a really good point that was raised about those sisters that teach kids like me, because I actually went to Catholic middle school. So I absolutely know what that's like. And so I am curious to know what he thinks. But we also know that they have been pushing the Project 2025 agenda. And
so there we go. Another talking point. We got two constructed talking points. Weird. Right? Shout out to Greets. What's good with you, bro? We got two constructed, repeated, lowbrow, low IQ, no information behind them talking points. Weirdo, which is opinionated, emotional, and ineffective. And Project 2025, which if we're looking at Project 2025 and that's so bad, and the guy is actually as bad as they claim that he is, we really need to be looking at, what is it called? Agenda 47 or whatever, right? His actual agenda. And they haven't told anybody to put the focus on that one time. So again, they're controlling and diverting your attention to places where it doesn't need to be. Ineffective governance, ineffective politics before any of these people even get into office, right? So we have two constructed talking points. What are these constructed talking points based in? Name calling. And that's it.
And a lot of that agenda kind of has their own definition of what Christian
name calling. And that's important because name calling is part of monolith enforcement. Name calling is something that works on shame-sensitive people. Shout out to my man, Keep It 100. Shame-sensitive people. This is why you have Joy Reid pointing at everybody, saying the stuff that she says. This is why you have Charlamagne the God on his slurred and barely intelligible rants. They attempt to use shame sensitivity to control and quell people while sitting there saying that we're not a monolith, while not allowing anybody any standard deviation or variance to be able to have any type of flexibility or autonomy. Also, pay attention to who's paying them to do this. Okay?
Christianity looks like and what Christian families look like and what we all should be doing. And I don't think that that's inclusive of Catholicism and the Muslim folk, as well as atheist folk, everybody else, even though we supposedly have this thing called freedom of religion in this country.
So the Harris Walls campaign, of which you are now a national campaign co-chair, they are in Georgia.
She's now a national co-chair. All right, so everybody write that down. She's now the national co-chair of the Harris Wall campaign. How much of a raise from what she was doing before do you all think that she got in percentage?
Georgia looked in rough shape. We've got some new swing state polling out today. Again, no one poll is determinative, but it shows narrowing gaps and in fact, a lead in some of these swing states. Harris up in Arizona, up by 2 points in Georgia, down 1 in North Carolina, up in Nevada, again, all within the margin of error. They're doing a swing through what's called the Black Belt in Georgia. In
the Black Belt. Never heard that before. A little bit of identity politics, a little bit of monolithism, right? The Black Belt. That's interesting. Now, they're not talking about Bruce Lee, are they? Which is interesting. That's neither here nor there. The Black Belt. How many people have heard this referred to as the quote-unquote Black Belt? Never heard that before. But at the same time, luckily for me, I'm one of those humble people who have never claimed to have heard of everything, because I haven't. You know what I'm saying?
By 2 points in Georgia, down 1 in North Carolina, up in Nevada, again, all within the margin of error. They're doing a swing through what's called the Black Belt in Georgia, in areas that are both rural and predominantly African American. I'm just curious.
Both rural, quote unquote, and predominantly African American. Okay. And he's curious. What's he curious about? Let's find out. Because we're
your
curious.
Thoughts about that, which I haven't seen a candidate do in a while, I gotta say.
So if we're not a monolith, then what it should be is that the answer should be Black people are diverse. Black people have a diverse school of thought. There are some Black people who are traditionally more conservative. There are some Black people who are traditionally more Democrat. It's very interesting. We don't know how it's going to go. The only thing that we can do is provide a good case to the voters and let them decide on who will be the best candidate. But we think with what we have to offer our voters that it will be Kamala Harris. That would be the correct answer, wouldn't it? If that would be the correct answer, throw some flames in the chat. If that's not the correct answer and I'm wrong, well, then by all means, correct me. But if you do correct me, please try to correct me not using any of my dope, swaggy, you know what I'm saying, drip-tastic intellectual property. So if we're not a monolith, then for the most part, it should be about convincing and earning, right? Because there's an element of uncertainty, right? You don't know exactly what's on somebody's mind. So you have to convince them. You have to give them facts. You have to give them data. You have to give them a cost-benefit analysis. You have to show them a graph. You have to let them watch a video. You have to share some social media posts. You have to compare time frames, compare candidates, right? You have to do some actual work. Something that these people are not accustomed to, right? Let's see if that's what she says. Let's see if she's worth that raise that she got.
I'm very excited about it. That is exactly what we're going to get out of this team. We're going to get them doing the things that are out of the box because they understand what the stakes look like. But here's the reality. We are just not having the conversations with rural America that we should be having because we do have an agenda that is actually about bettering their lives. When we look at the broadband access that's been brought to rural America, that was brought by Democrats in the House and the Senate. And
how many of you guys ask for broadband. I don't usually, talk to Democrats when I am looking for broadband. Usually what I do is call Spectrum or AT&T. Call me crazy.
In a Democratic administration. That means better access to healthcare. That means better access to jobs. That means better access to education. A lot of times, as someone who lived in East Texas, I know that we are limited to whichever plant is set up in that community. And if that plant closes, then that potentially decimates all of your economic opportunities.
Nothing about business ownership or wealth building. Interesting. Let me ask you guys this question. Any of what she's listed, is that anything that you all have asked for? Anything that you all think is a necessity? Anything that you do or don't have? Where did they get this information from? What kind of poll did they take? Did they hire a research agency? Do we know the research method? Just curious.
The general feeling in the race right now is a kind of consolidation of the Democratic base, a campaign that's been obviously transformed by the departure of the president, the vice president accepting the nomination. What keeps you up at night? Where is your head as you're looking at the next 68, 69 days?
Yeah, I think the only regret will be that I didn't give it my all. Everyone that I talk to, I tell them we've got to run through the tape. We can't take anything for granted. We can't look at these polls and get excited. We can't look at how many people are showing up to the rallies and get excited, because ultimately the only poll that matters is the poll on election day. And so I don't want people to get comfortable. I don't want them to feel as if we have this in the bag, because it's far from over. And we know that the forces that are working against us are strong and in full force. We know in states like Texas, they're trying to kick people off of the rolls. In fact, they are kicking people off the rolls. They're now.
This is important. I want you guys to pay very close attention, and I'm gonna let her run through what she's gonna say here, and then we're gonna go back to it because it'll sound familiar because we actually talked about this story. So pay very close attention right here. And shout out to everybody that's watching. I appreciate you guys. If you all haven't smashed the like button yet, we got 21 people watching and we got 19 likes. Let's try to get the likes up to 30.
Want people to get comfortable. I don't want them to feel as if we have this in the bag, because it's far from over. And we know that the forces that are working against us are strong and in full force. We know in states like Texas, they're trying to kick people off of the rolls. In fact, they are kicking people off the rolls. They're now going in and they are perpetrating raids on elderly women.
Who's she talking about? Because we actually talked about that elderly woman. Who is she talking about? Now that's interesting, because when she brings this up, shout out to Late Not Last. What's good up? What's good with it, bro? When she brings this up, this is interesting, right? Because my question is, okay, now that woman that she's talking about, that happened to, she's got a whole organization called LULAC that's actually handling that legal situation. And you know what else they're handling? They're handling any type of situation that the group of people that woman is a part of. And you know what that organization doesn't say? That organization doesn't say black and brown. So here's my question. What's this? What is this? Now let's verify, right? Because remember, we do misinformation. They get radio hosts that never have any information posted up online when they're talking about their content. And mind you, when we do our content, we always have the associated article or the associated data right there with us, because the technology that we use allows us to have screen share. But somehow we're just podcasters, despite the fact that they pay podcasters that are contracted by iHeartRadio to come and literally do the same thing that we do, except for it's paid and scripted, and we are not, right? Who is she talking about right here? She's talking about that lady from Texas that was, quote unquote, allegedly targeted in that, quote unquote, raid of alleged quote unquote illegal voters by the Texas Supreme Court, by the Texas Attorney General, right? And that's being taken care of, and she's being represented by quote unquote LULAC. Now, I'm curious, why would you give a shameless plug right there? What's the point? Fear tactic? How does that help the message? Let me ask you guys this. That situation that happened with that elderly woman with LULAC, could that happen with you? Could somebody take your ballot and say, you're not a legal citizen and you can't vote? No one's going to do that to anybody in here. If you guys haven't watched the videos that I've done about quote unquote voter rights, because remember, there's a difference between quote unquote voter rights versus attempted voter suppression. Those are two different things. And manipulative, cowardly, pseudo-intellectual people will try to conflate those two things to try to sow confusion in people so that they can continue to control things, because that's what people do, is try to control things instead of allowing people autonomy. But make sure you guys pay attention to that, because this person that she's talking about, that person is taken care of. Not only is that person taken care of, that person is taken care of by the oldest Latino civil rights organization in the United States, LULAC. Now, why wouldn't she come out and say all of that?
Because ultimately the only poll that matters is the poll on election day. And so I don't want people to get comfortable. I don't want them to feel as if we have this in the bag, because it's far from over. And we know that the forces that are working against us are strong and in full force. We know in states like Texas, they're trying to kick people off of the rolls. In fact, they are kicking people off the rolls. They're now going in and they are perpetrating raids on elderly women that are simply just trying to do their part for democracy. We are facing some really ugly and negative forces that are doing
democracy. Is that warm and fuzzy wuzzy kind of democracy that's just so good for you and so warm and loving that it hurts.
Everything that they can to hold on to power. And so for me, this
is that kind of democracy that got Robert F. Kennedy off of the ballot. That same type of democracy that got Robert F. Kennedy censored by Facebook. That same type of democracy that put pressure on Facebook to shut certain people up. That's democracy. That's these guys. Is that correct? If that's correct, give me a thumbs up. If that's incorrect, give me a thumbs down. It's the warm, fuzzy democracy with sharp teeth.
It laid back, and as Tim Wall says, goes to sleep. He says we can sleep when we dead. I tell people I'm the walking dead right now because I'm not getting sleep, but it's just that important.
We reported on the beginning of the show about the altercation that happened at Arlington National Cemetery, where the ex-president brought a campaign videographer, turned his appearance there into a campaign spot that was uploaded on their social media feeds. A worker there, apparently, again, this is the best we can sort of get from the reporting from NPR and our own reporting and what we've heard, tried to stop them. They plowed through that. They're kind of doubling down on it, and they're saying that the worker at Arlington National Cemetery was having a mental
fact. Shout out to DeAndre. It's that kind of democracy that got Kamala Harris the presidential nomination. It's that kind of democracy that, trust us, we know better than you what's good for you. Just trust us. And listening to us is your freedom. It's that type of democracy. It's that type of democracy. Here's my question. Is that democracy? Or is that monolithism enforcement?
Like a mental health issue and sort of attacking that person? I'm curious your reaction.
I mean, it's the same old games with these guys, you know, like they don't abide by norms. They don't abide by the law. And honestly, anyone that tries to enforce any rules upon them, they literally just steamroll them and they act as if they were all right.
Like how the Democrats did RFK? like putting Tulsi Gabbard on a terror watch list? That like that? We gotta have the hurt your feelings snipers on patrol to give people headshots in case somebody gets their feelings hurt. That type of thing. That's what we got.
It's really unfortunate, especially when you have someone that is running to be the most powerful person in the world, to know that they literally just have no appreciation for basic norms. This is not the party of law and order. I think that we know that. That may have been who the Republicans used to be, but MAGA definitely is not that.
Now, here's the thing. The warm and fuzzy police, those people that are just so lovable that they'll break your back when they give you a hug. Anybody that doesn't agree with slightly everything that they say, somehow that person becomes MAGA. How many people remember the Red Scare and McCarthyism from way back in the day? If you guys remember the Red Scare and McCarthyism from way back in the day, give me a thumbs up. If you guys don't, then give me a thumbs down. The direction of the world that we're moving into with these lunatics is that if you just aren't 110% on par with the cult, they'll just make you whatever they want to make you. They just make you whatever you want to, whatever they want to make you. And what they'll do is they'll do what you saw them do a couple years ago in the election. You can be something completely not associated with something else, and they'll turn you into something. Because you're not on the warm and fuzzy-wuzzy agenda. You're not with democracy. You're not with the hold hands till we break your wrist agenda. Jen Psaki and Don Lemon. Let's take a listen.
Ask you about your trip traveling across the country, because you were traveling across the country on the way to Chicago where you were, and we'll talk about that too. You interviewed a lot of people. What are some of the things or trends that surprised you about some of those conversations?
Well, I don't know if it was surprising, but it was certainly eye-opening to hear so.
Exactly. This right here, this is the ministry of truth. Shout out to Patrick Tyler. Patrick Tyler says, questioning and having concerns about them illegals in Denver that are running amok is you being MAGA. Yeah. Voting for the couch is you being MAGA. Saying, hey, I don't know if I'm comfortable with the way that Kamala Harris changes positions on literally everything. You must be MAGA. We're going to turn difference of opinion into an actionable offense, which is why we need to make sure that we have everybody programmed in the exact way that you need to be offended, so that we can use that offense as a charge to action of getting rid of or isolating people that we want to not be able to have any room to breathe. They have their social media trolls out doing it. They have their paid operatives on TV doing it. They have the people that they bus to these rallies doing it. It's literally plain as day. Do not allow shame sensitivity to make these people impress on you a decision that you don't want to make. Your autonomy should always be your first priority.
Ask you about your trip traveling across the country, because you were traveling across the country on the way to Chicago where you were, and we'll talk about that too. You interviewed a lot of people. What are some of the things or trends that surprised you about some of those conversations?
Well, I don't know if it was surprising, but it was certainly eye-opening to hear so many people, even people of color and women, saying that they are going to support Donald Trump. I'm not quite sure.
Uh-oh. Warm and fuzzy alert. We've got problems in paradise. Somebody call all the Rainbow Gestapo. Oh, it's the happy face army of 2025. The little toy soldiers with the big guns coming to enforce peace and joy for everybody. Because you know what peace is, right? Peace is having such tight control over people that they're scared to fight. Let me ask you guys this question. What era of peace was not run by a violent dictatorship regime? Oh, Star Wars and the Galactic Federation. Look at how nice and organized it was. Oh, if only everybody could see what was going on behind the scenes.
Interviewed a lot of people. What are some of the things or trends that surprised you about some of those conversations?
Well, I don't know if it was surprising, but it was certainly eye-opening to hear so many people, even people of color and women, saying that they are going to support Donald Trump.
Now, why would that be surprising if we're a monolith, if we're not a monolith? Not a monolith means that there's a multiple amount of outcomes, not all of those outcomes being the same. So you were surprised that you went somewhere and the outcomes amongst each person weren't the same. Let me ask you guys a question. Is that monolith enforcement? If that's monolith enforcement, give me a thumbs up. If that's not monolith enforcement, then give me a thumbs down. So basically what they're saying is we're shocked that you're not behaving according to programming. That's interesting. That's interesting. Isn't that interesting? So I'm supposed to go amongst a group of people who this group of people is said not monolith, but then I'm surprised when I don't see the same results amongst the majority of them. Does that make any, how many people in here worked in quality control or Six Sigma? Or how many people in here have experience with statistics? Is what I'm saying making sense? Or is this just, I don't know, nonsense? Because somebody's not making sense. Am I plebiscite babbling?
Talentless, scandalous, plebiscite babbling.
Shout out to Crew. What's good with it, bro? Let's hear some more
Of those conversations.
Well, I don't know if it was surprising, but it was certainly eye-opening to hear so many people, even people of color and women, saying that they are going to support.
Shout out to DeAndre. That's an excellent point. Shout out to DeAndre. That's an excellent point. Now, DeAndre says, because you heard Joe Biden, if you don't vote for me, then you ain't black. Not a lot of people on that side had a problem with that, right? The very same group of people are saying, if you cook collard greens, then you are black. And now, mind you, Joe Biden said this.
You ain't black.
They said that. And then when we ask about those questions, somehow it's us policing blackness. It seems to me that it's them putting the standard on blackness because, like I said, you could do and be whatever you want to. I believe in autonomy. So don't try to enforce the standards that you set onto me because you can't substantiate them. Because you all want us living in a bizarro world denying reality. This is the party that literally uses denial of reality as an algorithm to the issues. Just look at how they deal with gender dysphoria. Let me ask you guys this question. Are anorexia and bulimia a form of dysphoria? If anorexia and bulimia are a form of dysphoria, give me a thumbs down. Both of those diseases cause you to not see yourself as you actually are, right? Is surgical intervention a cure for those? Let me know.
Support Donald Trump. I'm not quite sure that the polls are accurate as it relates to the tightening of the polls and who's going to support whom. And, you know, right-wing media, you know, when I released my content, they said, oh, Don Lemon was shocked or Don Lemon was surprised at the answers that he got. But there were a lot of black men, Jen, who said that they were supporting Donald Trump simply because he gave them a stimulus check. He gave them $1,200 back when he was president.
Who said that? If any, shout out to the chat, shout out to the Discord gang. If you guys see any of these videos where there's random black men saying Donald Trump gave me $1,200, so I'll vote for him again, let me know. Because what's interesting about that is a lot of people may not be the same age as me, but George Bush gave out stimulus checks. He was one of the first presidents that kind of got his name buzzing for doing the stimulus check thing. A bunch of people didn't jump out the window for him. So who's literally voting for Trump because of a $1,200 stimulus check? I know that's nothing that anybody has heard over here. And also, I'm not voting for Trump. But I know some of you are, and that's perfectly fine. Regardless, that's not anything that anybody's ever heard over here. Shout out to TD Media. TD Media Group makes it very clear. He's supporting Trump this election. He's never said anything about he's doing it because of a $1,200 check, and he's got over 800 videos on his channel. A lot of which, if you listen to them, sound oddly familiar from some people's new videos. So who's saying these things? The media. See, if you get an article from Pew Research, at the bottom of it, it'll tell you the research method. Right? At the end of this, they don't give us any credit rolling or anything like that that tells us where they got this data from. So who are these people? Shout out to Maximus. Shout out to John Guillory. What's good with y'all? Right? We got to pay attention to this stuff and hammer them on it. And then, other people that kind of critique these things and analyze these things, we got to ask them the same question. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why you would make this stuff up. Why would you make it up? Make it make sense.
Did not somehow remember that the current president also gave them a stimulus check, except that his name wasn't on it. So I had to remind them time after time that the check did not come from Donald Trump, that it came from a Democratic Congress, and he actually slowed it up in order to have his name on the check. So when they got the check and his name was on it, they automatically thought that it came directly from Donald Trump, which I think is good.
So I want you guys to pay very close attention, because this right here is Don Lemon. Don Lemon is race simping. Don Lemon is making a case for how simplistic and how stupid he's trying to claim that we are. We're so dumb, we don't even know how the chronology of a written check works. And you just have to, sympathize with our stupidity. If you guys hear him doing this, give me a thumbs up. If you guys don't, then give me a thumbs down.
Also gave them a stimulus check, except that his name wasn't on it. So I had to remind them time after time that the check did not come from Donald Trump, that it came from a Democratic Congress, and he actually slowed it up in order to have his name on.
Now, I don't know if anybody's aware of this, and I don't know if anybody cares, but we'll just talk about it anyway. Don Lemon actually has a problem with Trump because Trump said, grab him by the P. There was a situation that took place a couple years ago involving an individual named, if I'm not mistaken, Justin Heiss, where Don Lemon was actually alleged to have grabbed a bartender by the balls. So these people are complete hypocrisy. These people are a complete contradiction.
On the check. So when they got the check and his name was on it, they automatically thought that it came directly from Donald Trump, which I think is good marketing. It's the same as he does.
So again, he's just making the case for, saying that we're dumb. We don't understand anything. Sitting up here talking, babbling.
Just like a woman. That's because some of you niggas, you be acting just like a woman. Legal Reaper, keep it 1,000.
Thank you. Thank you to the Reaper over there doing good things at the Reaper.
Does for buildings around the country, especially in New York. He doesn't actually own them, but he puts his name on them, and it makes people think that he owns them, and it actually makes them think that he is richer and bigger and more benevolent than he is.
Was there anything, what did they think about Harris? Did they have anything to say about her?
They did have, listen, it depends on where you are. We went to a number of different battleground states in Pennsylvania, Ohio. We were in Michigan, Indiana, on our way, obviously, Illinois, on our way to Chicago. And it sort of depended on where you were. Pennsylvania, well, I shouldn't say Pennsylvania, I should say Philadelphia, was a bit more liberal, and the answers to the questions about her and him were quite different. But for the most part, in Pittsburgh or at the Jersey Shore and in Atlantic City, in Ohio especially, many people did not know who she was. Right? They weren't familiar with her. So I think she has to reintroduce herself to the public. But for him, I think that they thought that he's better for the economy. And that, again, that he brought money into the community, and that he was.
Now, here's the thing, right? One thing that Don Lemon isn't saying, which we've talked about and gone over extensively on the channel, is that national polling data has shown that the majority of Americans do share the same sentiment that Trump managed the economy better. This is a national similarity amongst people who participated in that survey. So what Don Lemon is trying to do is Don Lemon is trying to take that diverse sentiment that's shared by a large amount of people and isolate it to the black people that he was talking so negatively about earlier.
On black people's side. And so, listen, I wasn't surprised by that. I've been doing this long enough to know that you never know where people are going to fall, how they're going to vote. That's their own personal prerogative.
I want you guys to just pay very close attention to how many of you guys agree with this nonsense that Don Lemon just sat up here and said to Jen Psaki? If you guys agree with this, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree with this, put a clown face in the chat.
Familiar with her. So I think she has to reintroduce herself to the public. But for him, I think that they thought that he's better for the economy. And that, again, that he brought money into the community, or that he was on black people's side. And so, listen, I wasn't surprised by that. I've been doing this long enough to know that you never know where people are going to fall, how they're going to vote. That's their own personal prerogative. But I think it's important.
So now, which one is it? Black people think that Donald Trump is on black people's side, or are we running around woke, like they like to say, running around talking about orange man bad? Which one is it? Which one is it? Which one is it? Now, again, I want you guys to pay very close attention. Black people have the highest loyalty rate to the Democrats. And this is how they sit there and talk about black people. I'm sure there's nobody that was upset with Trump, you know what I'm saying, name being on the check, right? I mean, if there's one or two things that people see as a good thing, are they not allowed to say anything? No, they're not allowed to say anything, because democracy is monolith enforcement. Look at the democracy using the media arm to enforce its monolithism. Look at Don Lemon sitting there being a shame simp, and Jen Psaki sitting there looking at him like he's crazy. Like, would you shut up? These two, both of these are both people that call people that have families weird. Just saying.
Important for them to understand and to go into the voting booth with some knowledge, that they're informed as an electorate. And for all the reasons that they were telling me, the information was all false. And they didn't understand the correct reasons why they might vote for him.
Yeah, it's a reminder. I mean, you've called Donald Trump.
So what are the correct reasons? Look at it. So as you guys can see, I want to make sure that everybody sees this. You all see the media being used as a simp enforcement and a monolith enforcement arm, right? If you guys see that, give me a thumbs up. If y'all don't, give me a thumbs down. Now watch, here come Jen Psaki with the follow-up.
and they didn't understand the correct reasons why they might vote for him.
Yeah, it's a reminder. I mean, you've called Donald Trump a racist on television. You're talking to all these people out there. You still feel that way?
Yes, I think I was the first person to finally say it. And I think I was the first person to say that he was lying because people were afraid to say it.
Is it that people were afraid to say it, or did we say too much? Because if you listen to some people, we just can't stop calling Donald Trump a racist. If you listen to other people, we all just worship Donald Trump like he's on a stained glass window at church. Which one is it? What reality are these people living in?
And I said, why don't we just call it what it is? Why don't we call it a lie? Why don't we call it racism? And I wasn't just saying it because it was an opinion. Anytime I said something like that on television, I backed it up with facts and I gave people examples of the reasons that I was saying those things. Of course, I think he's
right. Now that's opportunizing, right? Basically, what Don Lemon is doing is, well, you know, I'm gonna choose. This is one of the reasons why when I hear people say that whole little line about, you know, I prefer my racism XYZ. I don't like that line. You know what I'm saying? I don't like that line because to me, that line is mathematically the same as the better of two evils. So I don't know how you could say you prefer one or the other forms of racism and then turn around and say, well, the better of two evils line isn't the way to go. They're literally mathematically the same thing. Each of those is what's called a greatest common factor, least common factor situation, where you factor out the least common or greatest common variable. You factor out upfront and covert, you're still left with racism. You factor out greater or less, you still got evil. Same damn thing. I don't like those statements. One of those statements is not better than the other. Both of those statements are mathematically equivalent statements that it doesn't matter who says what or who flies off the handle where. Any normal, esteemed, competent mathematician or logician would agree. And that's one of the problems. There's not a lot of that. There's not a lot of that. My line is that I like my racist in an urn or in a history book or on a tombstone. Very different. That means that I like my racist and racism non-existent. Very different.
He's racist. All you have to do is look at his rhetoric. All you have to do is look at his track record. And anyone can see that. Go on.
No, keep going. Keep going.
So, I mean, anyone can see that. And so I don't think that was odd or something that was bold. So I do think that he's racist. Is it surprising to me that so many African Americans are supporting him? A bit. But I also think that people tend to romanticize the past. And even though by most metrics, the economy is doing better and it's on fire, what people do is they vote with prices. They vote with their wallets. So maybe the economy is better. Both can be true. The economy can be better, but prices are higher and people have less money and they have less resources to put towards those high prices and to feed their families. So, we talk a lot about low information voters. I like to call them low partisan information voters.
Basically saying low IQ voters. How nice. So, I mean, in either situation, whether you got a Byron Donald or whether you got a Don Lemon, they basically get somebody that's just completely far removed to come and sit there and have a nonsensical conversation, just berating people that he's never been around. And that pays. You know what I'm saying? It pays.
Because many of the people I spoke to were not sitting in front of a television every single day and every single night, following every micro breaking news development about Donald Trump and about what's happening in politics. But they were quite aware of what they were doing for their families, how much or how little money they had in their pockets. And I think that they vote on that and not necessarily, what they see on television. As a matter of fact, Jen, I was surprised. I asked people where they got their news from, how did they keep informed?
And it's over. All right. So that was enough. Hey, shout out to everybody. If there's anybody that's in the Discord and you guys happen to find that full interview, because I was trying to find it and I couldn't find it, let me know. Shoot it to me in the Discord, and we'll finish reacting to the rest of that video because I want to hear what else that clown had to say. So now next we about to listen to Charlamagne the God and Angela Rye.
On the road again and trying to make major inroads with voters in the state where she defied the odds with President Biden in 2020. That would be Georgia. And Vice President.
Yeah, I got to agree. Shout out to John. John said top tier SBE. Facts. If y'all agree with John, give me a thumbs up. If y'all disagree, give me a thumbs down. That was top tier elite Omega level SBE. You know what I'm saying?
Harris is taking her campaign through GOP strongholds in southern Georgia. It's part of a two-day tour with her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, their first appearance together in the state and first time back on the trail since the convention, visiting a barbecue joint and dropping by a high school.
Visiting a barbecue joint. How nice. I wonder what she was expecting to find there. Some ribs.
We wanted to come by to remind you that our nation is counting on you. We're so proud of you and everything you have achieved. And I will tell you, I was in band when I was your age. So I know a little bit about, coach knows about players.
Man, she did everything that everybody did. Y'all, anybody want to know how to get Kamala Harris in trouble? Take her to a AA meeting and let her talk to a bunch of drug addicts and just record it. That's it. Boom, you got her. Because she going to just say that she did the same thing that everybody else did. Isn't it crazy? She been around the world, yeah. You know what I'm saying? And done everything that everybody else has done.
Right? And all that you all are doing, it requires a whole lot of rehearsal, a whole lot of practice. But all that practice makes for beautiful music. And that is a metaphor, that is symbolic for everything that you all will do in your lives.
And tomorrow in Georgia, Harris and Walz will sit down for their first interview as their party's nominees. It airs 24 hours from right now, 9 p.m. tomorrow night, only right here on CNN. A lot riding on that appearance for the vice president. And as the Democratic ticket tries to put the Peach State back in play, a brand new poll tonight shows
Talentless, scandalous, plebiscite,
Harris gaining ground in Sun Belt battlegrounds, among them Georgia. Harris with 50% support among registered voters and Donald Trump at 48%. So incredibly tight within the margin of error. So there is no clear leader. But the fact that Georgia is competitive right now is big news in itself. The survey attributes Harris's gains to strong support among women, Black voters, and young voters. So let's take the pulse of the people in Georgia and beyond. My sources tonight are multimedia mogul Charlamagne the God.
How is that a source? Charlamagne the God is not a political scientist. He's not a political analyst. You know, like when they talk about Bitcoin, like they'll get Michael Saylor. You know what I mean? They get Charlamagne. This is a radio host. He's a professional, high-paid podcaster. The very people that you all say spew dis and misinformation all day. He also is biased with direct lines to the White House that we talked about earlier, talking about reference information, referencing an ABC interview from earlier this year. So my question is, what kind of contribution can Charlamagne the God provide in this context here? Charlamagne the God, you know, they filter the calls for the radio show, The Breakfast Club. But I mean, he's living in the past. They don't even have no live chat on their radio show. You don't even know what's going on in real time. You only get the calls that they let through. I don't know what kind of experience Charlamagne has throughout the United States, different places that he's ever been, different populations, different groups of people. I don't know any other groups of people who have the mainstream media go and seek out a radio DJ to give them insight to their quote unquote deep political secrets. Do you guys? Because I don't.
Voters and young voters. So let's take the pulse of the people in Georgia and beyond. My sources tonight are multimedia mogul Charlamagne the God, host of the Breakfast Club radio show and author of the new book, Get Honest or Die Lying, Why Small Talk Sucks. could not agree more with that sentiment. And Angela Ride, CEO of the political advocacy firm Impact Strategies and the co-host of the Native Land
If you guys
podcast.
notice,
great to see you both. I'm excited to see what you have to say tonight. Charlamagne, let's kick it off with you. You see
every
that poll
time
that I mentioned earlier.
Charlamagne
It's a snapshot in time, of course.
is on a TV show, regardless if it's CNN or if it's Fox, because he does go on Fox. Don't get it twisted. They always give him a plug for his book. Did you guys notice that? Go back and watch just maybe 4 or 5 videos from him doing interviews with news companies this year. He gets a plug for his book. Now, ain't nothing wrong with that, right? Sell your product, sell your merch. I tell people buy merch from the merch store all the time. I'm not going to tell you not to. But is that the incentive? I'm just curious. You know what I'm saying?
No clear leader, but Georgia is a swing state again. That was not the case with President Biden. What does this signal to you? Do you think she can keep the momentum going and keep Georgia in play?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having us.
Let's actually break that down. If Georgia was not a swing state with Biden, right? Georgia was not a swing state with Biden, and Georgia is now a swing state, unless it was a red state and has converted to a swing state. If it was a blue state and is converted to a swing state, then what that means is that the Democrats have lost control of that state. That's what that means. Ineffective campaigning, ineffective policy, ineffective voter outreach. You've lost control. You were incompetent. You failed. That's what that means. There's nothing else to it, right? Let me ask you guys a question. If you get an F on your test, what does that mean? That means that you failed. That means that you're not competent in that subject matter. That's what that means. It's not rocket science.
Land podcast. Great to see you both. I'm excited to see what you have to say tonight. Charlamagne, let's kick it off with you. You see that poll that I mentioned earlier. It's a snapshot in time, of course. No clear leader, but Georgia is a swing state again. That was not the case with President Biden. What does this signal to you? Do you think she can keep the momentum going and keep Georgia in play?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having us tonight. And absolutely, the VP is doing exactly what she needs to be doing. We all know this isn't a traditional campaign because of the short window she has. So she's got to go out there and she's got to leave no stone unturned. She's got to shake every hand, kiss every baby. That is what campaigning is. Campaigning is explaining.
So Charlamagne, I want you guys to understand what Charlamagne the God just said. Charlamagne the God just said she's doing everything that she needs to do. Then he went on and said she needs to turn over every stone, reach out to every person, and kiss every hand. Now, if she's doing everything that she needs to do and everything that he described is what she needs to do, then how do we describe that blank period of 40 days before she reached out to the media for an interview of what she was doing? How is that described in? What is that, the great void?
Explaining yourself and your policies to everybody, and
Shout out
don't
to
let
Shaka.
social
What's
media
good with
fool
it,
you.
bro?
I like the vibe, but the vibes aren't going to be what wins you this election. People want policy. People want something tangible that they can feel, that can make them feel better about their circumstances. And she's gonna have to go out there every.
No, a tangible something that quote unquote makes you feel quote unquote feel better about your circumstances. People want better circumstances. They don't want to feel better about any damn thing. People want better circumstances. So again, what you got is a bunch of just, I don't know, man. Is this paid political analyst talk? Do you feel that you're being adequately represented? Do you feel that he's articulating you in a way that makes you proud? Let me know what you guys think. To me, I'm sitting here asking the question, are you smarter than a 5th grader?
This is President Biden. What does this signal to you? Do you think she can keep the momentum going and keep Georgia in play?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having us tonight. And absolutely, the VP is doing exactly what she needs to be doing. We all know this isn't a traditional campaign because of the short window she has. So she's got to go out there and she's got to leave no stone unturned. She's got to shake every hand, kiss every baby. That is what campaigning is.
Not only is it not a traditional campaign because of the short window that she has, but kind of how she got to where she got to is also one of the ways that makes it not a traditional campaign. That's also something that very identifiably makes this not a usual campaign. If you guys would agree with that, give me a thumbs up. If you guys would disagree with that, give me a thumbs down.
Is explaining yourself and your policies to everybody, and don't let social media fool you. I like the vibes, but the vibes aren't going to be what wins you this election. People want policy. People want something tangible that they can feel, that can make them feel better about their circumstances. And she's going to have to go out there every single day and explain how she is going to do that for the American people. And she's doing it.
Angela, to bring you in, those battleground polls also show Donald Trump pulling in 19% support from Black voters. That is actually triple what he got in 2020.
Donald Trump has tripled his Black support since 2020 in those given states. Now, let me ask you guys a question. Does me reading the screen somehow in bizarro world make me MAGA to a competent human being with half a functional brain lobe? Because what's interesting about this is that these people on CNN can sit here and read this stat unbothered. But somehow, if I simply read this stat, somehow that makes me support Agent Orange here. Let me ask you guys a question. What is the standard on adult intellect enforcement these days? Is there one? Or is it okay for everybody to just be walking around with their brain sloshing in toilet water inside of their heads? Because if you ask me, I think that that's the status quo. Shout out to Crew Reality. Crew Reality says 1 to 3% means triple, but these folks are liars. Well, 7 times 3 is 21. That's pretty close to 19. So that's a pretty close estimate. You know what I'm saying? It's on. If you multiply 3 times 7, you get to 21. That's only a 3-point difference. And I think the margin of error usually is about 6 points. So, you know what I'm saying?
What do you make of
Oh,
that?
look at
What
there.
is
There
he
it is on,
doing
is
right
on the
to
side.
win
On the side right here it says margin of error is 4 points. So if you multiply 7 times 3 and you get 21, 21 is definitely, you know what I'm saying, within 4 points margin of error. So that's how they can say triple.
I'm over.
I don't make anything of these polls that are talking to imaginary Black folks. I would love to know, for one, who they're talking to, because I've not
So
seen
now these people, so now it's just these people are imaginary Black folks, and we'll just dismiss it. We'll just dismiss them as people that don't exist. They're imaginary Black folks. That's why TD always says that little part about he's a Russian bot, because that's what they said last election. People like TD are just a Russian bot. No, you don't get to just dismiss people that don't agree with you as non-existent, because you operate off of somebody else's platform that they built for you, where they command every move that you make, pay you a little bit of a paycheck, and you have to follow their rules and policies. You don't get to dismiss us, who had to build everything from the ground that we have, and we might have a smaller amount of viewership than you, as non-existent. You don't get to do that. You know what I mean? We're just non-existent Black folks. So there goes that warm and fuzzy Gestapo of, if you make us uncomfortable, we'll just make you not exist. Let me ask you guys a question. How safe is that going forward in the future? That sounds a lot like Judge Dredd. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think that they don't exist?
I think that they are, maybe, you know what, they might be the invisible man that Ralph Ellison talked about in his book. I don't know who these people are.
So here's the thing, right? And this is where you pull in everybody. These are invisible Black folks, according to her. Was Byron Donald invisible when he's been on here defending Trump? When Larry Elder was in front of Charlamagne the God, right? When Larry Elder was in front of Charlamagne the God and went viral off of making Charlamagne and his empty skull go viral because he had steam coming out of his ears from trying to burn so many calories, trying to think of responses to say to him. Was that imaginary? Here goes another question. When Candace Owens also graced the Breakfast Club, was that imaginary? That's interesting, because we just named 2 Black Trump supporters, not our favorite Black Trump supporters, but 2 Black Trump supporters that are not imaginary, that are very real, that have a very real track record of things that they've made and done and said, tweets, social media, video posts, that were actually on the Breakfast Club. Charlamagne sits there, knows these people exist, has interviewed them, and sits there and lets Angela Rye dishonestly say that these things are non-existent, like xenomorphs and black goo. So again, this is why I ask, if you get somebody who's not a political analyst to do political analysis, is this misinformation? That's my question to you guys. Let me know what you guys think.
I don't make anything of these polls that are talking to imaginary Black folks. I would love to know, for one, who they're.
What do you think about radio shows that talk to imaginary Black folks, though? Because Charlamagne the God talked to two of those imaginary Black folks. Let me ask again, is this misinformation? If this is misinformation, give me a thumbs up. If it's not misinformation, then give me a thumbs down and let me know what it is. And shout out to everybody that's watching. I appreciate you guys. If you all haven't smashed the like button yet, please do me a favor. Take a moment, smash that like button. Also, if you guys haven't hit the bell, take a moment, hit that bell. And also, please share the stream to your social media. And if you like this content, make sure that you tag somebody that you know that's interested in this type of stuff in your social media post.
They're talking to, because I've not
So
seen
you
them
think that they don't
anywhere.
exist?
I think that they are, maybe, you know what, they might be the invisible man that Ralph Ellison talked about in his book. I don't know who these people are. There was a Trump ad that was released, I believe today, that's targeting Black women voters. And there are these people who, allegedly exist all throughout the country, and they're reading scripts. You can see their eye line going over here. And I think some of them might be paid to say some of these things. I'm not sure. But here's what I do know, Pam. You talked about this not being the case, Georgia not being the case for Joe Biden. Joe Biden did actually win Georgia in 2020. And I also want to give some credit to
So again, if Joe Biden, let's do this, because see, this is the problem here. We're dealing with people that are not part of reality, so they don't follow the rules of reality like math and science. So let's do math, let's do chronology. If Joe Biden won this state, the state is now converted to a swing state. What that means is that Democrat control has been lost of that state, which means that you're doing an incompetent job. You're producing negative productivity. You suck. That's what that means. If you guys agree, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down.
Harris, who has been to Georgia 7 times this year, right? And so I think it's important for us to acknowledge the work that has been done. Their state directors talked about 35,000 new volunteers on the ground since Kamala Harris announced. They have well over 24 offices in that state. They're doing the work. And so what you do see with polls and what you do hear from folks who are registered voters is that the tide is changing, that they're excited about the change and the excitement that Kamala Harris brought to the top of the ticket. And I think we really got to give more credit to the work. I'm not giving any credit to these polls. Polls end up being wrong all the time. And I've seen polls that say 15%, 19%, 18% of Black folks. I don't believe it at all. I really don't.
So I want to follow up with what you had said about, who are these voters? As I said, the 19% of Black voters supporting Trump. Our CNN's Ali Reeve actually recently spoke to a Black voter in Virginia who owns a shop that sells pro-Trump merchandise. Here's what she said about his outreach to Black voters, and I'll get your reaction on the other end.
I think they're efforts.
Now, again, we've reacted to this, right? This is a caricature of a Black voter that's a Trump voter. There's a lot of these, right? We wouldn't deny them. We know who they are. Tim Scott, he one of them, right? Byron Donald, he's one of them. Larry Elder, he's one of them. Candace Owens, she's one of them. She's one of these people like this, right? But every single person that vote for Trump is not one of these type of people. Everyone that votes for Trump is not one of these type of people. They also didn't take into consideration people that are not voting at all. Now, it's okay for Palestinian people to have an entire uncommitted movement, but you will be chased down by bubblegum pink military wearing, fuzzy wuzzy militants and simp enforcers if you say no one has sold me yet. Because we have a mechanism of monolith enforcement while sitting there saying we're not a monolith. We have a monolith enforcing Gestapo amongst us. If you guys would agree, give me a thumbs up. If you guys would disagree, give me a thumbs down.
Are succeeding tremendously. All the things that have happened to President Trump, the attacks on him, have done nothing more than strengthen Black people's connection to him, because now he's someone who is the target of a struggle, and they have always felt that they've been a target.
All right, Charlamagne, what do you think about that?
I think that I can't speak for all black people because we're not monolithic, and that woman cannot speak for all black people because we're.
Is Charlamagne telling the truth? We're not monolithic. We're not monolithic. Listen, I want you to understand what just went on here. Charlamagne the God just said that we're not monolithic, while Angela Rye sat there and said, I don't know anybody who these actual people who aren't supporting Kamala Harris are. So in Angela Rye's mind, the normal standardized black person, one of the criteria is you must support Kamala Harris. But at the same time, on the same panel, we're not a monolith. Yet there's one standardized idea that links us all together. Again, this is why I got to bring to you, are we a monolith? Or is we're not a monolith just a talking point? At this point, if you ask me, I would like to believe that we're not. But I cannot believe what evidence does not present. And evidence presents that not only are we a monolith, but there is an internal and unchecked element of monolith and simp policing that enforces the monolith and attempts to use shaming if the monolith is not upheld. I believe that there's a lack of confidence that allows other people to have the freedom to be free thinkers because sadly, many of us do not trust each other's brain power. And others of us have a paid agenda or a paid motive to attack each other's brain power, like we saw Don Lemon doing for Jen Psaki, and she wasn't impressed. Let me know what you guys think.
Yeah, I think she sounds like to be totally honest, I think she sounds like a damn fool, but that's her opinion. And I do feel like, Democrats do owe black people a lot, but last election, 92% of black people voted.
I think inconsistencies sound like a fool. That's what I think sounds like a fool is inconsistencies. Right? I think it's inconsistent when you sit there and say that you don't know any black people who are not all carbon copies of each other, but then turn around and say we're not a monolith. We're either a school of fish or we're an aquarium with a bunch of different fish. Which one are we? Can't have it both ways. But see, we've been, in many cases, conditioned into a flawed thought process of believing that we can operate with two concurrent realities going on. We cannot operate in two concurrent realities because we're not in a quantum society. So again, I got to ask you guys the question. How can you sit here and watch somebody say everybody's supposed to be the same exactly, and then turn around and have somebody else on the same panel say we're not a monolith? We are a monolith if we're all the same. If the expectation for us is all to be a carbon copy, then we are a monolith. Which one is it, y'all? Let me know what's going on here.
For Democrats, and that has been the case for a long time. I see that being pretty much the case this year as well.
I want to follow up on that.
Make one observation on
Go
that
for
video
it.
real quick.
Wait, what did you just say?
Absolutely.
Did you see the message?
I think he said something important. Listen.
Of black voters supporting Trump. Our CNN's Ali Reeve actually recently spoke to a black voter in Virginia who owns a shop that sells pro-Trump merchandise. Here's what she said about his outreach to black voters, and I'll get your reaction on the other end.
I think their efforts are succeeding tremendously. All the things that have happened to President Trump, the attacks on him, have done nothing more than strengthen black people's connection to him, because now he's someone who is the target of a struggle, and they have always felt that they've been a target.
All right, Charlamagne, what do you think about that?
I think that I can't speak for all black people because we're not monolithic, and that woman cannot speak for all black people because we're not monolithic. And yeah.
For one, I don't think that woman, I don't think that she speaks for all black people. So I don't know why Charlamagne decided to just utter that out. I think that woman kind of is more along the lines of speaking for black conservatives and black Trump supporters, but that's neither here nor there. Because that's what they represented her as. They represented her as a black Trump supporter, right? She was brought onto the screen when it was said that these people don't exist, which is a troll move that they're so dumb they didn't even catch.
I think she sounds like to be totally honest, I think she sounds like a damn fool, but that's her opinion. And I do feel like, Democrats do owe black people a lot, but last election, 92% of black people voted for Democrats, and that has been the case.
Is 92%, that's pretty good for quality standards, right? 92%, that's 8% away from 100%. That's almost 100% monolithic. I mean, if you get some high potency alcohol, the highest you're going to get isopropyl alcohol is what, like 91%? I mean, we vote at Lysol ratios. That's Lysol ratios. What, Lysol get rid of what, 99.9% of the bacteria? He literally just gave Lysol ratios and then said that we're not a monolith. Which one is it, y'all?
For a long time, I see that being pretty much the case this year as well.
I want to follow up on
Can I
that.
just make one observation on
Go
that
for
video
it.
real quick?
Yep,
Did you see,
absolutely.
Did you see the message that she had
So
on?
also, another thing that you need to ask yourself is they have 91% of black support. There's no other group that votes at that high of a rate and at that loyalty level, and they're still complaining. What's there to complain about then? I think that instead of complaining, there should be some people saying thank you, right? That would make more sense, right? But you don't have that either. So why don't you have that either?
Their Trump bulletproof 2024, she should at least take that one down, right? Like, that's just tone deaf. It's inappropriate. This man just survived an assassination attempt, right? Based on reporting on this network. That is in and of itself crazy. So to Lenard's point about a damn fool, I would have to agree with that too.
All right. All right. So let's go back, Charlamagne, to bring you back in. Earlier this year, I was going back to look at some of your past interviews you've done, right? The dynamic has clearly changed. But when it was a Biden-Harris ticket, you said that you wouldn't support Biden's reelection, even if it meant Harris was VP. You told Politico in January that once the two got into the White House, Harris, quote, kind of disappeared. You told Politico, and it reported that you felt burned by backing her. What has she done specifically now to change your view?
Well, I had an unrealistic expectation of, what I expected of her.
And you just figured that out now. What was so unrealistic of your expectation? So he said he had an unrealistic expectation. So, and mind you, now she just told us that he went on all these different shows and gave these expectations. So now if people actually listen to this dude, just imagine all of the incorrect expectations that he gave everybody that he was listening to. And yet they do what? They platform him to give incorrect expectations again. So the mainstream media is proudly letting you know that they're giving you contaminated information to listen to, because as he just revealed to us, his information was contaminated. That's why he had incorrect expectations. So they purposely invited contaminated information to contaminate your mind because they care so much.
Her as the vice president, and the truth of the matter is that just comes in my belief of her. If you go back and watch an interview on Breakfast Club in 2018, I told her then that I thought that she could be the president of the United States of America one day. So I had I had a belief in her that over those 3.5 years, over the last 3.5, 4 years, I know that administration, handcuffed her a lot. So what changed is that she's at the top of the ticket now. For her being at the top of the ticket now, she's the person that I believed in back in 2018. That person did kind of disappear over the last 3 years, but that is the role of the VP. I mean, if you're a vice president, you kind of, do, I don't want to say do nothing, because she did do a lot, but if you kind of like don't rock the boat and you let the president be the president, you did a great job. You did a great job.
Let me just follow up with you, because you said, the last administration handcuffed her a lot. What makes you say that? I know you talked to Harris as well. Has she conveyed that to you? What makes you say that? Or is it just like your observation?
No, she never conveyed that to me. I just know that that's what I observed. She's the vice president. That is the vice president's role. The vice president's role is to, push the agenda of the president and, support the president. And she did that, very well. But she's still the VP, but she's at the top of the ticket running to be the president. And I think that, over the last 3 to 4 weeks, the person that I know that I started, supporting way back in 2017, that's who I'm seeing front and center right now. And I love it.
Yeah, because you had said also earlier this year she could still pivot. It seems like what you're saying is she has pivoted.
Right, right. Shout out to Crew Reality. Crew Reality says, Rob, you stream for a year. I know what I say, and I'll pull up to anyone. Someone invites you, but then you pull a Kamala. How does that affect your name? It depends on who your audience is. There's some people who it doesn't matter what they do, their audience will allow them anything. And that's how you get people like Fresh and Fit and all these clowns that got all of these subscribers that contradict themselves all the time and do completely stupid stuff because their subscribers allow them to do it. Now, if you have actual subscribers with a backbone that's going to hold you to a standard, that might affect your career negatively. It's all about who you have. You see, Umar Johnson still got a big following, and he ain't got no school. So, you know, you can never really say. You can only kind of expect certain things and kind of try to figure out why things may or may not go as expected, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying?
To your liking.
He definitely pivoted. Like, you know, I also said that the language of politics is dead. And, you know, if you hear a lot of the things that she's saying now, you know, she's really speaking her mind.
Yeah,
like, you know, earlier today, she said,
I gotta agree. I gotta agree 100%. Fanatics make all the excuses for losers. Facts. Super facts. They make the excuses for him. They make the excuses for him. They make them right even when they're wrong. It don't even matter. You know what I'm saying?
His mind. She should have said out of his mother effing mind. But, you know, she was right in that sentiment too.
So there's that. All right. So that's the end of that. So there's another little clip that we're gonna look at. And we're gonna look at that one in the morning. All right. We're gonna look at that one in the morning. But I just wanted to put this out here real quick. The Black Voter Monolith is a couple other videos titled The Black Voter Monolith. Y'all should look at it. And then again, we gotta just re-examine this, if you ask me. I don't see how people can say that we're not a monolith when the voting percentages are over 90%. That's absurd to me. Over 90% in most cases, if you look at any type of science, any type of solution mathematics, a concentration of over 90% for the most part is a fluid solution, which means that we fluidly are a monolith when it comes to voting. How we're not? The only time we're not is when somebody wants to say it, and then there's never any evidence that we're not. And then when there are people that swim against the current, you got somebody like Angela Rye that's going to assure somebody that those people don't exist, despite the fact that Charlamagne the God has interviewed high-profile people of that ilk. So I want to just ask you guys the question, what are these people qualified for exactly? Besides, like I said before, providing contaminated information. So shout out to everybody, man. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Shout out to Black Free Thinker, bro. I hope you enjoyed the replay because we right at the end, but it's good to see you as always, bro. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, do me a favor, smash that like button. If y'all haven't hit the bell, take a moment, hit the bell. If you're not part of the Discord, hit the Discord. If anybody that's in the Discord find that full Don Lemon and Jen Psaki interview, throw it in the chat or throw it in the Discord and tag me in it. And as always, ladies and gentlemen,